Hello ladies. All right, so we're going to get started by just putting your lace closure, pinning it down at the front to your spandex cap and pin it all the way through your foam head. And then you're going to pin all the way around the back as well. So you're going to pin the entire closure down nice and flat. Then the next thing you're going to do is just grab a clip or something to hold the hair away while you're starting to sew it down. Then you go ahead and start sewing your closure down just like you would sew any other tracks, and use the reinforced lace area so it's a lot easier for you to sew. And go ahead and sew all the way around, and make sure you make your stitches a little smaller around the curves so that it lays nice and flat. So there, I'm coming around to the other side, and like I said, you just sew it down like you would any other tracks, and just put a knot right at the end so that it's nice and tight. Then you're going to take the pins out and readjust your cap. For me personally, I know that my cap has to be all the way down for it to measure around the foam head to fit my head. So that's why I readjusted the cap so that it's wide enough to fit my head. I take one of my shortest tracks, so my shortest length was 18 inches, and I measure that to go all the way around from one end of the closure to the other. And then I sew that down right along the edge of the cap. And that's to make sure that my wig is completely seamless and you're not seeing any of the other tracks and stitches. You'll only see that, that hair all the way around the edge of my wig. So sorry my lighting was so bad, guys. I did turn on my light here, so now you can see a little better while I'm sewing. And I just wanted to show you that in the beginning, when I start sewing, I just go straight across. There's no diagonal, there's no U shape. I just sew my tracks literally straight across. I also use these sewing straight pins to help hold my tracks on the ends. You see the little yellow straight pin there. So like I said, I just sew straight across. There's no particular shape here or anything, just sewing straight across the back of the head. Flip the track over, stitch down the flipped area, and then keep on going. Straight across. Now here you can see I didn't go all the way to the end of the other track. Now's where I start to kind of change the way that I'm sewing. You can see I'm kind of lifting the track up and making that into more of a curve, almost like a bell curve. It's hard to explain the shape that I'm creating, but I'm trying to make sure that I take up more space on the cap. So I'm trying to fill up all that back area of the cap, because if I continuously go straight across, it won't fill up all that space, and it will just look kind of funny. So I start to do this sort of a curved shape where it's higher in the middle where you saw that red pin. I kind of lift the tracks higher there and then kind of slope it down, if you can see the shape that I'm creating. So I'm not, so now I'm going to cover those folded tracks to make sure that you can't see any of that folding. And then just continue sewing as usual. And so just continue making that U shape until you start to get closer and closer to your closure. Make sure you cover up those folded tracks when you can, so that it makes your install and your wig a lot more neat looking. So now I'm laying the second to last track, and here's the completed wig. I'll show you where the tracks meet up to the closure, and it's really nice and clean. So then just let the closure down, and now it's time to start fixing your closure. But before you start working on your closure, definitely take your wig off, and now it's time to cut away that excess cap underneath the closure. So grab you a pair of scissors and really neatly start to cut away that excess closure. Be very careful not to cut the lace from your closure. So really pull that area away from your lace. And make sure that you don't cut your stitching as well, because it will release your closure and then your closure will just be hanging. So really take your time. You don't want to waste all that time you spent making this gorgeous wig and then turn around and cut your closure. You will be very upset. So take your time here. So just check your closure, make sure everything is still intact and you haven't cut any of the threads away. So now it's time to start working on that closure for real. So grab yourself a comb and start making your part however you would like your part to be. This part I think is going to be somewhat of an L part, so I'm going to do a straight part down. And whenever I do my parts, I always add a little bit from the other side, and it just allows the hair to look a little natural. So you see how I curved that part a little in the front? It just allows it to look a little more natural in the front. And then I always make sure to have a part in the back as well, just so you can see a little bit more scalp. Sometimes I think people go wrong when they try not to show any scalp at all, but there is a way to make it look a little more natural. Of course, for your closure to set, you do have to wet it. So just dampen it a little bit with some water. Then you're going to add some makeup or concealer to your part. I did not bleach my knots. I don't really do that anymore. So I do just use the concealer method. That's just some Wet n Wild cheap makeup that I use for my closures. So go ahead and apply that directly to the lace, and it's okay if some of it gets on the hair as well. That's totally fine. It will you know, wipe away later. It won't stay on the hair forever. It will just adhere to the lace more so than the hair. So don't get too worried about that. And I like to use a concealer brush because it lets it be a little more precise. I hope in this lighting you can still see. I know the light is so bright. Then I just add a little bit of hairspray to make sure the hair is truly laid in the areas and the directions that I want it to go, and there's no flyaways. And this is the final look. It's the finished product. I hope you guys like this wig. I absolutely love it. I will be using it for a celebrity inspired look coming up very soon. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. Mwah!